This video doesn't have any tags and it barely has a description, so if it's showing up on your feed, I don't believe that's a coincidence. I want to encourage you today by sharing something that I've learned. What I've realised is there's nothing to do, so just be. We tend to have these achievements and these goals and these things that are going to bring happiness. But if you've achieved enough of them, you realise that they're fleeting. It doesn't last and it doesn't actually bring you what you thought it would, and then you just move on to the next one. And that's not going to work either. So there comes a point where you either have a midlife crisis and still that doesn't work because you decide to buy a speedboat or something, another thing that you think is going to bring joy and doesn't, or none of it works. So this is sort of the conclusion I've come to that I'm trying to share with you. The way I realised this was I've recognised enough of these throughout my life. When I was about 15, my brother got his first summer job and he saved up. The first thing he bought was an iPhone. And at that time, I had a Sony Ericsson slide phone, not a flip phone. It like slid in the middle. Quite cool. But I'd never had a touchscreen phone before. And because he went first and got the iPhone, I really wanted the iPhone. So I had to wait about a year, worked, saved up, bought an iPhone. So for a year, I had a slight sense of dissatisfaction in anticipation for getting the iPhone. And then when I got the iPhone, it brought a sense of fulfillment for about a day. I used it constantly. You know, you run the battery down. When you first get an iPhone, you run the battery down in about 12 hours because you're just testing out all the features. But by then, my brother had upgraded and bought the next iPhone. And then I thought, oh, well, that would be cool because mine's like 2 years out of date. So then you might say, oh, well, that's superficial. Of course, an iPhone's not going to bring happiness. But throughout life, you tend to jump across these things that are going to work, and they become more and more or less and less superficial over time. So the next one was he was doing his motorcycle test, and I was not able because I was younger, and I thought, oh, when I can get my motorbike, that'll allow me freedom and I can explore the island that I live on and, you know, meet new people. So that's less superficial. It's not an iPhone, it's freedom that I'm waiting for. Then you get it, and of course it brings some level of joy, but then you're on to the next thing. Well, maybe it's a relationship I want. Then you get the relationship and you think, well, that's nice, but it still hasn't scratched the itch. And then you say, oh, well, it might be spiritual, or it could be before spiritual. It's usually status. I need to make a name for myself. I need to get rich or famous or just have a good career. So I'm the doctor guy or whatever it is. Then you go after status and you realize nobody cares. They're all focused on their own status anyway. And then you come to spirituality and you say, well, okay, I've tried all these other things, the worldly things, so it's spiritual. But you still might miss the point with that as well. And I'm on the journey to becoming baptized, and in Easter, so all going well, I'll get baptized in a couple of months. But I've even not pegged any fulfillment on this either. There's quite an interesting Alan Watts video, and he's kind of joking, but one of the quotes is, a lot of people got baptized, but it doesn't always stick. And I anticipate this happening with me. It's not like I'm going to get baptized. I mean, certain things happen, you know, it removes original sin. So that's going to happen out of my control. But it's not like I'm just instantly going to be in bliss. Because it's a mindset thing. You have to understand this before any religion, before any fulfillment is going to work. So the solution to this is realizing that it's all in the present moment. If you've had enough of these things like I have, I got the iPhone, it satisfies for about 2 days. I got the motorbike, it satisfied me for about 3 months. I've found religion and it comforts you. But if you don't have the correct mindset in place, none of it's going to work. So if you think about the word enthusiasm, the word enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheos, which means in God or inspired by God. So if you're enthusiastic, it means you're rejoicing in what God has given you. So are you enthusiastic about every moment, about life? Or are you enthusiastic about an iPhone? Because the problem with that is the new iPhone isn't released until September. but God is here now. Your next relationship, if you're enthusiastic about that, you might not meet that person for a year, but God, in the form of nature and just reality and just the present moment, is here now. So that's the difference. Don't just exist. You know, if you just exist now, you're enthusiastic, you're in theos, which means inspired by God. Whereas if you're doing, you're saying, if I do this, if I get that, then I can be happy, then I can be enthusiastic. So I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. As soon as you start doing this, then you can start doing things again. So if you just exist and you go, I need to be inspired by God without the iPhone, without the relationship, without whatever it happens to be, then you can start doing, and then you do it with enthusiasm. So I've seen a trend on TikTok, and it's quite a good gauge of like society. The caption is what it looks like when you lose your spark, and it's normally 2 pictures or 2 video clips. The first clip is the person doing something they love, and you can just tell, you can see in pictures, like in their eyes, that they have joy. Then you swipe to the next one and it's like a depressing picture. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. That's why it's a trend. There's a lot of these videos floating about, and I could relate to it. There's been times where I've been in flow state, I've been very joyful, and times where I felt like I've lost my spark. And if you think what that means, to lose your spark, it means to lose enthusiasm, which means entheos, to lose the inspiration of God. And a lot of people in our society at the moment lack God. And I think that might be the reason why you lose your spark. So if you want to get your spark back, you need to deepen your connection with God. And it's not like, for me, I'm not baptized yet. Oh, so what? I don't get grace, I don't get joy and fulfillment until 2 months' time when I'm baptized. No, God is here now. God is ever present, and you have to become enthusiastic. Then the baptism actually means something. If I just get baptized but keep my old mindset, it was completely pointless. So this brings to mind Psalm 118 verse 24. This is the day the Lord has made, rejoice and be glad in it. So that's not rejoice once you get the new iPhone, rejoice once you become a doctor or get a relationship or become baptized. You rejoice now. This is the day. So there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do, nothing to achieve, only be. So the Buddha said this in a different way. All suffering is because of desire. So my encouragement is, there's nothing to do. So get good at being before you start doing. And the other problem with desire is, I've realized you can never answer the question of what do I desire? Because when you get it, it seems to be fleeting. So the iPhone, I really thought that was going to bring joy. When I got it, I'm on to the next thing. So is it that next thing? And then when I get the next thing, it's something else. So you can never answer the question. And the reason, and get enough of these things, do it. Go out and buy a speedboat if that's what you think you need. And then ask yourself, how long did this satisfy me for? Surely that's life completed. If it's a speedboat you need, you've achieved everything, you know, because you only think about one at a time. If you could lay them all out, it would just look silly. Well, it's a speedboat, all of these things. And none of them work. So get enough of them and realize that it's not going to bring joy. And if you can't answer the question, what do I desire? Then that's pointing to the answer, which is there's nothing to get. You already have it. It's life itself. Just live, just be alive. Get enthusiasm about that. Then you can start doing things, but you don't even need to do them. I could sit in this forest for 6 months and just listen to the birds and walk my dog. I mean, you might say that's doing something. I could not even do that. Do you know what I mean? But once you've achieved that, and it comes and goes, it's not like I don't have desires. I still have goals and I'm working towards them. But then you have enthusiasm again. That's getting your spark back. The beautiful thing about being a human is we have imagination and we can project things forward into the future and sort of anticipate how they're going to go. So I would say whatever it is at the moment, the thing you think that if you achieve it or obtain it, it's going to bring fulfillment. just visualize that you already had it. And if you had that thing, say it's money, say you just gained a load of money, would that be the end of desire? You know, or are you going to spend that money on something, you know, because that's your next desire? And then when you run out of money, do you desire the money back again so you can buy the thing again? You see how this is a vicious cycle. So if that's not the case, if nothing works, then there has to be some form of enjoyment. And it's the present moment. It's the fact that you're alive. That's enough. You don't need to add anything else to it. You need to meet your needs. So as long as you're not hungry and cold, you know, meeting those needs is fairly basic nowadays. You don't even need money for that. You know, you could live in a monastery and you won't be hungry, won't be tired, won't be cold. So it's just being alive. There's nothing to get. Hope that helps. Speak to you soon.